for Dad's videos. Thank you. Have a great day.
Picking up from where the last video left off, we enter Canyonlands State Park. There was a $15 to $20 fee to get in right here, and it is required even if you have permits to run the White Rim Trail like we had. But regardless, it's still worth it with all the views in the visitor center up here on the right. My plan originally was to take 2 days and 1 night to run the White Rim Trail. I had booked a campsite on top of Off Hogback, campsite C, which you'll see later in the video. But with the high desert heat and the 20-mile wind gusts, we decided to keep on pushing through and get into Moab. We ended up at a hotel in Moab later on this night. But you can do the entire White Rim Trail in about 6 hours, and that's without running the 2 extra there and back trails, which is Lathrop Canyon and Taylor Canyon. I ran Lathrop Canyon last year, if you watched the video I did last year, where we didn't run the whole White Rim Trail, but we did do Lathrop Canyon. And Taylor Canyon, I didn't have time to do this trip, but we plan on coming back and doing it again sometime. This is the start of the White Rim Trail. If you're running it clockwise, which is pretty common, but this is the start of the Shafer Switchbacks. So it is a narrow trail that has steep switchbacks that go down into the canyon floor below, and they're pretty iconic. They're pretty steep, but yet they are really wide switchbacks, and nothing like Black Bear Pass, or even later on when you're coming out of the canyon system on the other side of White Rim Trail, there is the Mineral Bottom Spring switchbacks, and those switchbacks are just like this, but they're super narrow and a little bit more scary. You could run down the Shafer Switchbacks and go all the way and take Potash Road back to Moab from this point. But when you go to make that turn onto Potash Road at the bottom of the Shafer Switchbacks, you continue going straight to run the White Rim Trail. But to go straight on that little 3-way intersection right there, you have to have a permit to go past that point of the road. You can get a permit up on top right here at the visitor center, or you can book it 24 hours a day on their website. Because they do limit 50 vehicles per day on the White Rim Trail, although I mean that's a lot of vehicles. I doubt you'll see probably more than 20 or 30 on any given day, and that's even pushing it. You have to purchase an additional permit if you want to camp overnight. Now, when you go to book your permit, there is a ton of rules and regulations as far as there's no fires at all in the park. There are no animals like dogs allowed. Like even if you keep your dog in your car, it's not allowed at all. Also got to carry lots of water. There's really no water at all, no services out here at all. So make sure you have plenty of water. Make sure you have extra gas. As far as fuel for my diesel, I did Long Canyon, and then I did all of Dead Horse State Park, and then I did a little 4x4 trail over here, and I still had a quarter tank of diesel left when I got back into Moab. So if you have a EcoDiesel Gladiator, as long as you have a full tank when you leave, you should be fine. If you have a regular Jeep that where you average like 8 to 15 miles per gallon, you're going to want to bring an additional 5 to 10 gallons of gas to be on the safe side, especially if you're doing Lathrop Canyon or Taylor Canyon. Both of those there and back trails will draw some gas. I was carrying an extra 5 gallons of fuel because you never know, you could encounter a rock slide or something like that and have to turn back around and burn all that fuel on the way back. Bottom of the trail right here, there is a bathroom. Make sure you bring toilet paper because they're not always stocked. And then you're going to turn a left right there to get back to Moab via the Potash Trail, which we did last year if you want to look at the video from last year. But this is the official start of the White Rim Trail going clockwise. Now, Trails Off-Road rates this trail as a 3 out of 10 as far as difficulty, but I would rate this a lot harder. They claim Murphy Hogback hill climb is the worst part or the most technical part of this trail. I beg to differ. I didn't have any issues with Murphy Hogback. My issues was the hard scrabble hill. You'll see it in this video, but you'll climb a extremely steep hill and then have a switchback, and then you're against a narrow rock shelf, and then you'll follow this rock shelf for a while, and then you'll come down hard scrabble hill. Once you come down the hill, it is extremely off camber, sandy, and steep with a sheer drop off. And I would just tap the brakes and start getting sideways. So you just have to put it down in first gear low and ride out the gearing to get down it safely. But more on that later. On the left right here is a quick side trail. It's a deep descent down into Lathrop Canyon, and it's a there and back. It goes all the way down to the Colorado River, and there's a nice picnic table and bathroom down there if you want to have a really nice lunch down there on the river. And if you watched my video from last year, I do have footage of us going down there and coming back. At one point there was a rock that fell down and made it kind of technical down there, but it's since been cleared out of the way. I think they cleared it the week that we were down there because it was cleared when we went down there last year. But it's still a really fun descent, and it's a really cool trail. As always, you don't want to be down there if there's any raining or flash floods because there's nowhere to go. So yeah, most of this is a 3 out of 10 as far as difficulty, but there is 5 to 6 on that last section of hard scrabble hill, which you will see for sure later on in the video. So if you're still taking notes through all of this, the best time to come to the White Rim Trail is April, May, and September, and October. In the summertime, like right now in August, it is extremely hot still. So you also don't want to be here if it's been raining, or if it starts raining and it gets really wet. It'll just turn into a nightmare for you. So avoid it if there's been like lots of rainfall. The White Rim Trail is 92.1 miles long, just the trail itself. And that obviously doesn't include going up and down these canyons, which add on a lot of time. I, again, ran it in about 6 hours straight. I go at a pretty good pace. Obviously you're going to add a lot of time on that if you're running more than one rig. I definitely recommend going with someone else in case something happens. My skill level has significantly improved in the last 2 to 3 years of going on trips like this. So I felt confident in doing it myself. But it only takes one part to fail to leave you stranded. I do carry, and I also recommend if you take a trail like this, you do carry some kind of satellite communication device. I use the Garmin InReach, which as long as I have a clear view to the sky, I could send a text message or an SOS call for help, giving my exact location. And I also do have the newest iPhone, which also does use satellite texting and communication for emergency situations. So going alone, I was a little bit more secure. If the worst would happen, I do have means of calling for help. Each of the campgrounds On the White Rim Trail, you do need a permit because they do need to put you down at certain campgrounds, so you are technically booking a campground. So like the Airport Tower Campground, that has like 3 or 4 spots, and they'll book you a spot. And the same with the Gooseberry Campground, it's got like 2 or 3 spots, and they'll book you a spot there. And each campground has a bathroom, and still recommend bringing toilet paper, and you still have to carry out your own trash. There's no trash services or dumpsters or trash cans at these campgrounds. And this trail will rattle your teeth and your Jeep loose. Make sure your suspension is completely tightened down, because if you have a rattle, or a loose bolt, this will rattle it completely loose. I have AEV 8100 blisting shocks, like the dual reservoir, and they got a workout on this trip. The first part of it is extremely driving over bowling balls, pretty much. If I can compare it to anything, it's like driving over bowling balls for like the first hour or 2 of this trail. It is just ridiculous, and it will rattle everything in your car loose. One tip that I found that extremely helped out, which I ended up airing down later on at the Gooseberry campsite, but air down to 12 to 15 psi in your tires. That will extremely alleviate all that vibration and bouncing around on the first 2 to 3 hours of this trail. Again, this is a required 4-wheel drive trail. That does not mean Subaru all-wheel drive or Honda Pilot all-wheel drive. You need that 4-low gear in order to go up and down some of these obstacles, because your transmission in the all-wheel drive, it just can't handle it. You need the gearing, not necessarily the tire size. You should be fine on a 30, 31, 32, 30, I recommend 33 to 35 inch tire to do this trail, but you definitely need that lower gear to get up and down, especially like Murphy Hogback and the hard scrabble climbs and descents. That trail on the left right there, that is the trail that goes to the White Crack Campground. It is one single camping spot with your own private pit toilet, but it is by far the best campsite on the White Rim Trail, and possibly in all of Utah and Colorado. The view from White Crack Campground overlooks the Canyonlands, the Maze District, and it is spectacular. Go Google it. So to book that, you got to book it online, and you got to book this thing out like almost a year out. Like, it's ridiculous, because that's the campsite everybody wants. The second best, in my opinion, is Murphy Hogback C, and then obviously Potato Bottom. But you can definitely Google online and see what the different pictures look like, and at the visitor center they actually have pictures of the different campgrounds. Up until this point, everything was extremely easy and 2-wheel drive, but now this is what I heard was the hardest part. The famous Murphy Hogback. Look how steep that climb is. Let's do it. That looks crazy, dude. We're doing it. Climb, baby, climb.
Yeah.
14, 18 degrees.
Let's look at that. I think I'll fall off.
Climb, baby, climb. Woo! Climb. Just don't stop. Just don't stop. Okay. Final stretch. Come on, baby. Come on, Diesel. Come on, Diesel. Come on, Diesel. Come on, baby. Oh my God, it just keeps going. Come on. Alright, last stretch. Yeah. Once you get to the top, crack open a cold one, man, because you deserve it. That was a fun ascent. So up here you have a bathroom. It's pretty popular, so again, make sure you bring toilet paper. And there's Murphy Hogback campsites A, B, and C all share that bathroom. Now, Murphy Hogback campsite C is right here, straight ahead. And this is what we had booked for tonight. This is Murphy Hogback C, and you can tell by the wind, it is extremely windy. It is 100 degrees up here right now. I thought the elevation would make a difference. Yeah, it's windy. That's the way out to the river. We're getting out of here. But Murphy Hogback C. It is first week of August. I recommend coming back up here when the temperatures are better. There's some protection behind the rocks over there if you want to camp over there. We're getting out of here. Just when you thought Murphy Hogback Climb was the worst thing on this trail, or at least that's what I was told by the Park Service, and that's what basically I researched, the descent off Murphy Hogback is just as nerve-wracking, and to some people, they've turned away from this and went back, the other way. But it's not that bad. I assume it would be worse in the snow season or, if it was wet. But it is a pretty steep decline. And a little bit off camber too, but it's totally doable. Just put it in 4 low first gear and just ride the gearing all the way down. At this point, I wanted to make it to the next couple of campsites and see if there was anyone there, and possibly camp closer to the river where it was maybe a little bit cooler down in one of the valleys on the water. But it ended up not being the case, and we ended up getting a hotel in Moab with our Marriott account. It worked out better that way because James had an upset stomach, and we were going on about 3 days without a shower, so we were able to take a nice cool shower at the hotel that night. Up next we have CandleStick Campground, which is another campground right after Murphy Hogback, and it has some view of the water, but mostly the plains and the Candlestick Tower on the right up here. Now, at this point, I figured the worst of it was over. I know we had a narrow shelf road left that I was warned to get out and make sure that no one's going down that way, so you don't have any issues running into people, because it's very narrow and it's only a one slot, one way kind of deal. I mean, not one way, it's travel both directions, but only one vehicle could do it at a time. So my nerves were pretty much, at rest. We had a pretty little canyon that you climb into right here, and then I was told at the ranger station that the White Rim Trail was just opened up incomplete because the Upheaval Bottom, where you get a lot of runoff from the rain and whatnot, the Upheaval Bottom had so much water in it you couldn't pass. So you would go all the way down the trail to the Upheaval Bottom, and you had to turn around and come back, which actually made you use a lot more gas than what you would have used if you did the whole trail in full. So I had that off my mind because they said that, hey, The Upheaval Bottom, it's dried out. You can go through it. It was just dried out as of a couple days ago, so there might be some water left down there, but it's completely passable. And then from the research I looked at online and some Facebook groups, a lot of people tried it before, and some of them got stuck, but they had friends with them to winch out. But they said hang to the left and you'll make it just fine. So everything's going great. My nerves are at rest. And then all of a sudden we come up to this steep hill climb area, and obviously the camera never does it justice, but I was in for such a big shock coming around one of the corners up here. The camera doesn't show it, but it's extremely steep and all sand and rutted out.
Hopefully no one's coming.
So right around this corner right here, you're going to make a sharp left, and then it's cross rutted, and then a very steep ascent around this next corner up here that totally threw me off guard. I was already into the throttle, and I just had to power on through it and hit the locker button as we climbed the sand up here. I was really worried about another vehicle coming from the other direction because there's so many sharp turns right here and elevation change. You cannot see anyone coming at all.
Climb out is way worse.
Again, the camera's not going to pick up how steep this is right around here, but it was extremely rutted, and you're already turning and it's just really steep up, and it was all soft. The tires were digging until the locker kicked in, but that section right there does not, there wasn't any warning for that, which I get it. You're kind of expected to do this thing, but as narrow as the shelf road was in climbing, it was a little pucker factor. And that was nearly not as bad as climbing down off this vista up here on the other side over there.
This ain't a sleeping spot, bro.
Right here you got a little bit of a preview of what's next to come, of just riding a narrow shelf road with a sheer drop off to your left on the Green River down there. And this was just a little taste of it before you get closer to it further on up ahead. Again, the descent off of this was the worst part of the trail.
Yeah. Alright, hopefully none of those rocks fall. Like, you couldn't do this. There's no way you can do this like in the winter months. So if it's been raining, you're not getting up this way,
I wish I stopped and waited a little bit longer for that sun to set over that canyon rim to get into that golden hour for video and picture perfection. First time we came to Utah and Moab, we were driving down 521 through the canyon, and the sunset would hit the canyon wall and just light up everything in that beautiful red gold color, and it was just perfect for pictures and videography. So while we enjoy the beautiful views from this shelf road right here, if you want to do parts of this trail, here's some advice on just doing like a day trip. Start at the Shafer Switchbacks and go down and go to Lathrop Canyon and have lunch down there, and then just go back out Potash Road. Or an even better route is come in off of Potash Road, go down, have lunch in Lathrop Canyon, and then go up the Shafer Switchbacks. I thought going up the switchbacks was more fun than going down it, just because, I don't know, I like climbing up them instead of, controlling your descent down them. So that way is possible. Or for an even more technical day trip, go down the other side. So go down Mineral Bottom's switchbacks, go all the way to the Hardscrabble campgrounds, and there's a little day hike to the Fort Bottom right there that's really easy. Have lunch over there and then go back the way you came up the Mineral Bottom switchbacks. That way will be extremely fun as well. So coming up right here is the worst part of the White Rim Trail. camera never does it justice, as I always say, but you are right now at an extremely sandy, this is all soft sand, extremely sandy descent, and you're slightly off camber off the cliff right there, so you're slightly leaning into the cliff, and it is extremely steep right here, probably 10 to 15 degrees straight down right here. And as we were slowly descending this, I slightly tapped my brake pedal to slow the descent, and I started sliding, sideways a little bit, and I just let go and just straightened back out. But it gets better a little bit around this corner right here, but just be very careful. Put it in first gear low and just let the first gear gearing in the low range just bring you down. So you don't want to step on the brake pedal at all, because you'll start to go sideways, and you don't want to get sideways on this. I think I got out right here and just cracked a cold one. I feel my nerves back up.
That was a very cool part.
Once you're down at the bottom right here, you're next to the river. Up there on the left is Potash Bottom Campground, which is, I believe, as on the water, but they do have a bug problem over there. These couple campgrounds, I checked them out, they had bug problems. But that's the turn off for Potash Campground. So going this way, you're going to get back up on a shelf road just a little bit. You don't actually climb up the shelf road, but you get on a shelf road right here. And there was no really climb to get up there. It was just slowly, I believe. But just make sure no one's coming the other way, because there is, I believe right here was the last part to kind of pull over and let someone by. But get out right here and look all the way down and make sure there's not a car coming, because there is no turn off, and backing up through all this would be miserable. Just miserable. Oh look, there's another turn in. But I believe there was a super long stretch right here where there was just no turn off, and it was also extremely narrow. I wouldn't imagine doing this in wet weather. This section right here was also the most narrow part of the entire trail. My Gladiator with 37s on it, I was almost scraping the wall, because I obviously didn't want to get close to the other side and fall down off the cliff right there. But if you had a full-size vehicle like a Ram 2500, that section right there is going to be the most tricky part for you probably. So now we're coming up on the Upheaval Bottom section of the White Rim Trail, and up until a few days ago this part was still closed because of all the rain and water runoff that they had. You couldn't get past this section right here. I see how the ground is still kind of saturated or looks flooded. Apparently this part was really flooded down here, and you actually drive through this wash. Now this is where all the water runoff comes down from, the high plateaus, and this is where it all runs down before it goes into the actual Green River. But part of the trail is this wash, and you can see where there was once a river that runs through here when the water level was high enough, and up until recently you couldn't get through this section. You'd have to turn around right here and go all the way back the way you came. So you can imagine the amount of fuel that requires to turn around at that point and come back, because at this part right here you're like 3/4 of the way done with the trail. So getting to this section right here, it would be horrible to turn around and go back the other way. So we made it through there, and just check out all this dust storm that kicks up because of how windy it gets when you get into this canyon. The wind and dust that picked up out here just was crazy to me, even from living out in Illinois for a while. Just seeing all the wind and dust out here, because there's no trees to kind of shade you, block you from the windstorms.
Whoa!
So here we are coming up on the Labyrinth Campground. So there are three campgrounds sites down here, three campsites down here, and there also is a old fort that is a small hike, but there's an old fort that you could hike down to and check that out. I believe it's from the early 1800s, if not earlier. It was actually built by Indians, I believe. Anyway, it's called Fort Bottom, and it's definitely worth the hike to check out. I didn't get it done on this trip, but I will do it again. Look at the wind hitting the water down there. We have another short cliff road right here, shelf road, that also gets very narrow. So all you 2,500 guys, this is the other section that is extremely narrow. I mean, I'd rather rub against the rocks there than put a wheel over this cliff right here. And after this short section right here, you'll drive along the Green River for a little bit longer right here, and then you'll pop out where the border to Canyonlands Park is. You have that final wash right there, and then you'll see the sign right here on the left for the entrance to Canyonlands. So that's technically where the border of the park is, right here at the, I believe it's the before that, or it's at the cattle grate. But you also have Taylor Canyon, which was back there on the right. That is there and back. I believe it's 5 miles in, or 4.3 miles in and 4.3 miles out. And then from this point, you're gonna go continue along the Green River to the Minerals Bottom Switchbacks. These switchbacks is like the final stretch of the White Rim Trail, because they are more narrow than the Shafer Switchbacks, and they also are a little bit more steeper than the Shafer Switchbacks, but there's like no forgiveness on these switchbacks at all. At this point in the day, we were just trying to get into Moab and get a hotel for the night with our failure of camping on top of Murphy Hogback C. So climbing these switchbacks was something that we had to get done quickly, and then from here to downtown Moab was about another hour 15-minute drive. So we still had another 20 minutes on a gravel road, and then getting on the main road that led into downtown Moab, we didn't get in till about 10 o'clock at night. These switchbacks remind me of another fun day trip you can do if you wanted to do something a little bit more technical, but still didn't want to spend the entire day doing the White Rim Trail, or 2 days doing the White Rim Trail. Would be to come down these Mineral Springs switchbacks and then go all the way down to the fort and hike that little trail, have lunch right there, and then come back this way and go up these switchbacks. That would be a good day trip, and still have some really cool views, a good adventure, and some technical stuff tied into the mix. At this point, the steepness of these switchbacks and the sheer drop off to the right didn't really faze me anymore. I was just done with the surprises of the White Rim Trail. This is why I wanted to make this video and just kind of walk you guys through with my voiceover. Thanks for making it this long, just listen to my voice for the last 38 minutes. But I wanted to do this video and just kind of walk through what my experience was. Granted, this was in 2023 in August, but what my experience was with this trail and what my expectations were, and then what I actually experienced on this trail. That way, if you were, this would be the perfect video for someone who is trying to plan the White Rim Trail and kind of know what to expect. So if you rewatch this, get a notepad and a pen, just kind of take down some notes, and you can kind of better plan your trip on the White Rim Trail. by listening to this video, by kind of guesstimating the time better, on what campsites to use, what to expect, what kind of vehicle. I mean, I even gave you the correct tire pressures to air down to, you know, to kind of make your white rim adventure more fun and less of a headache. Well, we're almost done with the switchbacks, and after these switchbacks we're going to be on a gravel road for another 20-30 minutes, and then we'll go into Moab and get a hotel for the night. But if you made it this far, thanks for watching. This is something kind of different than what, you know, I'm used to doing. This one I pretty much talked through the entire video, but it was either that or you were listening to Taylor Swift on my radio this entire time. It was extremely hot out this day, so I didn't want to get out and set the camera up and do all these, you know, and it's in a park, so I can't take out the drone and fly the drone around. And it was extremely hot. I didn't want to get out and keep setting up the camera. I just wanted to get this trail done with and have some better information for another visit, or, you know, like this, for planning purposes as well. So there is a restroom right there at the end, and then you're on this gravel road for 20-30 minutes before you hit the main road. And I did end up with a quarter tank of diesel left. Obviously, if you're driving a gas car that doesn't get, you know, 18 to 25 miles per gallon like my EcoDiesel Gladiator, you're going to need extra gas before you get to Moab, because there is no gas stations in between here and Moab. So plan accordingly. Well, this wraps up this week's video. Thanks for watching and making it this far. Please like and subscribe and hit that notification button so you get notified for next Sunday at 5 o'clock, where we start the morning running Onion Creek Trail all the way to the end, and then we take a different trail that loops all the way around the LaSalle Mountains and goes back into Moab just in time for lunch at Maltz. And then from there we start the Rimrocker Trail. So join us next week at 5 p.m. on Sunday, and we will start a new adventure then. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one. This is the end of Onion Creek Road. It dumps out into this beautiful meadow plateau, top of the world, way up there. This is, I believe, Rose Garden Trail. It's rated as a very difficult. And that goes around to the top of the world. We're gonna turn around and take Thompson Canyon back into Moab and probably have lunch and then start on the Rimrocker. But if I had someone with me, I'd go do that trail, because I saw a stock Rubicon do it. He had trouble, but he did it. And we're on 37s.